Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Christina Previtt. I am one of our pelvic health division teammates. In our pelvic health division, we have two courses. We have our 8-week online clinical management of the fitness, athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum. And then we have our 2-day live course. If you are interested in learning everything from the internal assessment to the bridge back to movement, I encourage you to check out either of our courses. But next week, Alexis is going to be in Chicago teaching our 2-day live course. And I'm going to be just outside of Houston, Texas with Rachel Moore on the 18th, 19th of February. Those are our next two courses coming up. So if you are thinking about dabbling into pelvic health, or you're a clinician that has been working in pelvic health for a long time, we encourage you to take a look at some of our courses coming up across the US. All right. Also, I hope that you all are having a wonderful Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It has been very cool. I'm a Canadian transplant into the US, so it's been really cool to be learning about different traditions, history, different cultural days that you have along your calendar. And so I'm excited to learn a little bit more about Martin Luther King Jr. today and take a look at some of the things that different communities do to celebrate that day. So happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. All right. Today we're going to be talking about the messy middle of postpartum rehab. The one thing about being postpartum is that for many, the rehab process takes a lot longer than they think. It takes more time than they had anticipated to feel like they're coming back to some semblance of normal, and I'm going to put this in quotation marks, or this normal hybrid in combination with the changes that we've experienced through our body by being pregnant and giving birth, whether that is a belly birth or a C-section or a vaginal delivery. And so when we're in our early postpartum phase, so the fourth trimester or the first 12 weeks of our postpartum journey, we kind of see fairly significant improvements over a relatively short amount of time. In the first 6 weeks, you may get back to some movement. You may be waiting, but you're going to have a lot of tissue healing. Your incision is going to be healing. The staples or stitches are going to be coming out. You're going to have, that it's starting to scab over if you had a C-section. Same thing with your stitches if you had a perennial tear or you had any sort of labial tear with the vaginal birth. You're going to notice that you're going to stop bleeding. You're going to be able to move around a little bit easier. And that's going to happen relatively quickly in the first 6 weeks. And it can feel so long at the time, but you're going to notice some pretty noticeable improvements over that first 6 weeks. And then from 6 to 12 weeks, again, getting back into some movement, whether that be walking around your house, taking on more excursions outside of the house, or getting back into a formal gym program, we start to notice, again, some of those improvements. As we get away from those 12 weeks and we start becoming, 4, 5, 6 months postpartum, there are some parts of a person's life that feel like they're returning to quote unquote normal or the new normal. You're a new mom, but maybe if you're in the United States, you are likely back at work in those first 6 months. So you're getting into this routine again, but this time, you're dropping little ones off at daycare, or if you're staying home with them, you're kind of getting into nap routines, etc. And because being a stay-at-home mom is a full-time job too, obviously. But you're getting into some semblance of a routine. At that point as well, my clients always start to say, I'm starting to feel like I am really far postpartum. Like I still feel limited, despite the fact that my body is starting to return and not look as pregnant or as distended, my uterine size is starting to come down, and I'm still limited, but I look less like I should be limited. And I don't know if that makes sense, but more like, I'm back at work if I'm working in the US, or I'm on a routine if I'm staying at home. I'm getting further and further away from labor and delivery, but I still feel like I am very limited. And this is what I like to call the messy middle. And the reason why that is because for individuals who are active, the recommendation that we usually say is that it's going to take between 9 and 12 months. If you grew that baby for 9 months, it's going to take that amount of time to get back to the intensity or the load that we were experiencing with exercise prior to getting pregnant, if that is something that is your client's goal. And so that early postpartum period, because we're still doing a lot of very acute healing, many of our clients feel okay with taking those progressions, right? We're going to take a couple of weeks off, whatever that might be for the individual. We're going to gradually return to exercise, especially in that first 6 weeks. But as we get further and further away from our birth date, we can start becoming impatient or becoming frustrated in the amount of time that takes. And there's a couple of ways that we can help our clients try to work through that emotion or those feelings in the messy middle. And so we're going to talk about a couple today. So the first thing that we always want to do with our clients in rehab is we want to set expectations. With our clients who have athletic goals or goals related to some type of physical activity, having some sort of idea about when individuals are going to be able to return to X, Y, or Z is extremely helpful for individuals to plan and work around. And of course, this is one of those ish situations, and some people are going to return faster and feel better faster, and some people are going to be longer. Life is going to get in the way, sickness is going to get in the way, etc. Having some of those expectations, though, is extremely helpful. So the study that we conducted on heavy resistance training in pregnancy tried to capture some of that information of when individuals were coming back to different activities postpartum. And we're now able to use some of those guidelines as an ish for when you can start to expect your body to have some readiness to return to different things. So returning to Valsalva was between 4 and 5 months. Returning to a weightlifting bout was between 5 and 6 months. And most individuals, if they are training for it, and that is something that is their goal, they can start inching in or creeping in to weights that they would be handling before they were pregnant between 9 and 12 months. So lay that foundation is number one. Number two, we want to validate a person's feelings, right? We don't want to say, oh, but you just had a baby 4 months ago, when that person is feeling like that was a really long time. We want to okay the feeling, right? I know it feels like this postpartum recovery is taking forever. You went through a very big change in your life. It is the biggest body change your body has gone through in a very relatively short amount of time. I know that it's frustrating, but it does take time to get back. That's number two. And then number three, we want to try and reframe where the comparisons come from. It can be so difficult for clients to not compare their lifts to what they were doing before pregnancy, or the timeline that they got back from pregnancy number 1 and now they're on pregnancy number 3. But their life looks so different with pregnancy number 1 versus with pregnancy number 3. Their body has gone through pregnancy and labor and delivery and postpartum recovery more than once. They have 2 other children at home that they're taking care of, plus now this newborn. And so there's a lot of things to consider. And so having that highlight and saying, it is time for you to think about postpartum PRs and celebrate those, celebrate that this is something that your body hasn't been exposed to in a long time. And that is a win in and of itself. right? Just like we talk sometimes about age group PRs, right? When we go into master's categories, we're going to say it's a 35 to 39 PR, or 55 to 59, or 70 to 74, I hope. We're going to do the same thing when it comes to our postpartum recovery. We want to celebrate those postpartum PR wins, and that helps individuals get through the messy middle until they can start feeling a little bit more exercise freedom with respect to not having to be as conscientious about things like core considerations or pelvic floor considerations based on where their recovery is. So when it comes to that messy middle, know that time, especially between 4 and 7 months, can feel like you are really far postpartum, and yet you are still feeling like you have to modify. And that can be a really tough and frustrating place for some of our active individuals to be. So making sure that we, one, set expectations early, not when frustration has started to accumulate. If you are getting individuals early, set that expectation. Say, here's what your postpartum recovery hopefully is going to look like. You're going to get back to Valsalva usually between 4 and 5 months, weightlifting belts between 5 and 6 months. You're going to start hitting weights that you were maybe previously utilizing between, 8 and 12 months, depending on you and how much you can get into the gym. Then we're going to make sure that we okay that feeling. It is okay to feel frustrated and feel like postpartum recovery takes forever, right? When you are pregnant, you feel like your body is, and your body isn't just your own, and you are making a lot of considerations and modifications for safety and making sure that your little one is doing okay. And then postpartum, there's a lot of sacrifice that happens with moms as well, who are, nursing or feeding, getting up in the middle of the night. Like, there's a lot there that is also happening. And so we want to okay that feeling that it is okay to feel frustrated or like this is taking forever. And that can be very validating. And then the last thing is that we want to celebrate those postpartum PRs. So we want to celebrate the little wins, celebrate the exposures that our body hasn't had for a while, and allow them to maybe reframe. And that could be a postpartum PR for their first pregnancy. But we want to do each pregnancy and postpartum journey is a clean slate, and we're going to hit those PRs as we get exposed to them as we work through our postpartum recovery. And then hopefully we're going to have that moment in time where we DC the Kegel, we DC all those considerations, and fitness is our limiting factor, not our pelvic floor. So hopefully you found that helpful. If you are interested in learning more about pelvic health, and in particular stay up to date with some of the research that is coming out in the pelvic health space, I encourage you to go to ptonice.com/resources and sign up for our PPP on Ice newsletter. It comes out every 2 weeks on Thursday. We just had one come out last week. And it is just research that we are seeing around the interwebs. Our faculty really hold ourselves accountable to stay up to date with the research, and especially in pelvic health, this field is evolving very quickly. And so we try and stay up to date, and we try to keep you up to date in the process. So let us know if you have any questions. How did you feel in that messy middle? Did you feel frustrated? I know I did in both my postpartum journeys, but I'm thankfully on the other side of both of them. And I can say that those feelings are very, very normal. And having those conversations with my clients have been very healing. So let me know if you have any questions. I hope you have a wonderful, I don't know if you're working or have a day off, whether you're working or have a day off. Hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. All right. Have a great one, everyone. I'll see you actually on Wednesday.